Coming up on the Paper Talk today, it's the morning after the afternoon before. A lot of the papers this morning focusing on yesterday's result against West Ham that left Manchester United in 16th in the Premier League. Can you believe it? We are 16th in the Premier League. We're actually looking at being 17th if it weren't for the fact that Spurs are much worse than us. And also, well, say much worse, a little bit worse than us. Let's hope that continues for the Europa League final. We've got some comments from the manager that have been pretty damning, and also what's going to happen with him in the future. It looks like he's alluded to the idea that maybe he might not be here for much longer. Let's get into it before we start getting too melodramatic. Jay here, Stretford, Paddock. This is the Paper Talk. As you can see, I'm outside Old Trafford. I can't even get my words out. I'm that annoyed at yesterday. I'm outside Old Trafford and the weather is fine. It's mild. You probably don't need a jacket. You won't need your parkas. I don't even know why I'm wearing this. Loads of stories to get through. Most of them, to be honest with you, focusing on yesterday's result. The fallout from yesterday's defeat to West Ham. Just yet another defeat for Manchester United. It's now 17 losses in the Premier League. A horrible record. I think the goal difference is -11. I think we're on 39 points. It's literally relegation. Form was sat in 16th place. The only reason we're not 17th, I think at one stage we were, is because Spurs have somehow managed to be worse than we are. I mean, it is just horrible. A horrible, horrible season. 10 wins in 36 matches this season. I have never witnessed anything like it in all my years supporting Manchester United, and I don't think many people will have. And the manager, as always, has been quite honest about it. He's been quite damning, and he's also been a little bit self-reflective and, I won't say melodramatic, but some of what he was saying in his press conference was a little bit surprising to some people. Now, Ruben Amorim has always been honest. He's always been sort of forthright in his press conferences, very open. He does have a good relationship with the media. He is willing to speak to the media openly. There was some issues, wasn't there, in the past with Erik ten Hag? It felt like he could get a bit prickly, like he didn't want to answer certain questions, or he had a little bit of a combative nature with the media, and at times that didn't help him. That went against him at times. Ruben Amorim, ever since he's come in, has been quite warm, quite jovial when it's been appropriate, but open with the media, willing to chat to the media, willing to sort of be frank in his discussions regarding himself and Manchester United and the performances and the results. And it was the same yesterday. He was talking about the future, and he was saying about how, maybe he might not even be here next season if this carries on. I'm sort of paraphrasing here, but it was like looking at the situation. Maybe it'll be a different situation with someone else. Sort of alluding to the idea that if these defeats continue, if next season the results haven't improved, will he still be at the helm, and maybe it should be someone else? Now, that seems pretty drastic for a Manchester United manager to even hint at that. Maybe you look at those words and you say, well, he wasn't really saying he doesn't want to be here or he's going to go, but there's a hint there that he might not end up being the manager next season. And for a manager of Manchester United to even remotely allude to that is quite shocking. I've never really seen that before, and not that I can recall. By all means, get involved in the chat in the comments and remind me if I've forgotten someone who did that, other than Ralph Rangnick, who knew he wasn't going to be here. But for a manager to say that, it shows you where he's at. Now, he is being honest, and I think if he'd have come out after the press conference yesterday and said, you know what, Manchester United were magnificent. This is one of the best performances by a United team I've ever seen, or whatever, we'd have said he was insane. He has to be honest about it to a certain degree. He has to say, look, it's not good enough, which it isn't. Losing so many games, sitting in 16th in the Premier League is completely unacceptable. Another game as well, a Premier League game as well, where we are struggling to score. That's been a sort of a running theme throughout this season as well. I mean, defensively we haven't been great, but in attack-wise we've been horrible. And we'd actually had a decent spell recently with goals in the Europa and in the Premier League. We've started scoring a little bit, but yesterday against Old Trafford, it was back to the usual form of not being able to score. Now, Ruben Amorim pointed out about the lack of urgency when defending as well. Obviously, those two goals were poor goals to concede from a Manchester United point of view. But in terms of the other end of the goal, Rasmus Hojlund is a player that everyone was talking about. Where I was stood, even against Athletic Club, he was getting a little bit of stick. I know he scored, but yesterday he was getting a lot of grief from fans around me. My missus was sat at the other end of the stadium. She said that he was getting a lot of stick from fans there as well. I saw on social media he was getting grief. Then you look at, I think there was a couple of people pointed out as well. I think Sam Peoples had pointed it out, and one or two others, that Luke Shaw give him a bit of a rollicking, give Rasmus Hojlund a bit of a rollicking. Now, that's nothing major, really. That happens quite a lot in a football match, especially from an experienced player like Luke Shaw. But it just feels like everyone's on Rasmus Hojlund's case at the minute. Now, while I do sympathise with him to a certain degree, because it's not nice to see, and he's not helped with some of the service either, his performances haven't been great. And if you're not scoring goals, you're going to look at your striker and go, look, you need to perform. You need to be the one that's stepping up. And it's just not happening for him. And I'm a little bit surprised that he started and finished the game yesterday, because I thought it might have been a time just to give him a little bit of a break, just to maybe bring in Chido over. But that wasn't to be the case. I was in two minds, to be honest with you. Part of me was feeling like, should we bring in Chido over? Then another part of me is thinking, actually, should we just get Rasmus Hojlund in, get him playing? But I think at the very least you could have subbed him. You could have given him a little bit of a break, because it wasn't happening for him. But it just feels like the manager now is in this situation where he feels, look, the best way to approach Rasmus Hojlund is to just keep playing him and try and play him into a bit of form ahead of the Europa League final, which, whilst I might not agree with it completely, I think if he's performing poorly, maybe you just take him off during the game. I understand the thinking, I understand the feeling behind that, but I do worry going into this Europa League final against Spurs, which is such an important match for Manchester United now, that if Rasmus Hojlund's form hasn't improved by them, or if he's still suffering from this lack of confidence too, he could really struggle in that game, and that could be costly. I mean, Ruben Amorim was even talking about how, that game is going to get us into the Champions League, and maybe we don't deserve Champions League football. He's saying, we carry on playing the way we're playing. Maybe being in the Champions League isn't a good thing. Again, I'm paraphrasing, but just for a manager to even mention that, it's quite shocking. And yeah, that's where we're at. I mean, we're sat in 16th, Spurs are in 17th. One of those two teams is going to be in the Champions League next season. Now, I'm not saying they should change the rules or anything like that now. The rules are set in stone. We know that if you win the Europa League, you qualify for the Champions League. But it is a bit ridiculous how poor the two teams have been in the league, and one of them is going to be in the Champions League. I don't think anyone saw that coming. And at the beginning of the season, you said to me, end of the season, the Europa League final is going to be Spurs and United. And I said that makes a lot of sense. If you'd have told me that would be 16th versus 17th, literally the two spaces above the relegation zone, I'd have thought, not a chance. But that's where we're at, and that's where Ruben Amorim's at, and I do worry for him. Now, I like him. He's a good manager in terms of what he's achieved at Sporting. I think he's a good manager anyway. And I think he's the right man for the job. I like the way he is with the press. I like the way he is with the fans. I was here yesterday. I brought my lad, and my missus was sat. We were sat sort of separate ends of the ground. But basically, we had the kids with us. My missus and my daughter wanted to wait for the players and Ruben Amorim. And they waited, and they got a picture of him, and he said he spent so much time after the game with so many fans. He literally did. He was just, he didn't wait. He was like taking selfies and signing autographs for almost everyone that was there, which is a good thing to see from a United manager. And it's good the way he's with the media. But ultimately, you have to win football matches. I've said this about every Manchester United manager. I said it about Erik ten Hag. And I liked Erik ten Hag. I defended Erik ten Hag a lot longer than most people did. And I know it's a bit, sort of seems a little bit melodramatic for a manager's first season when he didn't even start the season to be talking about his future. But look where we are, look where we're at. And if things don't improve, if we don't win that Europa League and we start badly, Ruben Amorim himself has admitted, we start badly next season, he's sort of admitted maybe he's not going to be here. And I think that is the case. We need to see an improvement in these results, and we need to see this manager back properly in this summer window. He's mentioned that himself. We have to get the signings in because he needs players. He needs some players in. A lot of people were critical of him yesterday for going with quite a strong team. Couldn't have gone much worse, could it? Because we had an injury to Leny Yoro. Now, from what we hear, it's not too serious. The manager, I think, said they're going to have a look at it today and assess it, but it shouldn't be too serious. It's a little issue, I think they said. Don't know, though, if that is going to keep him out of the Europa League final. What is it, 9 days away? It might do. We will find out later on this week. There is going to be a press conference later on this week, so we'll find out a little bit more about who's going to be available, whether Matthijs de Ligt is going to be available. Can he come back into the team for the Europa League final? And just how serious that knock to Leny Yoro is, because he's one of the few players, well, say one of the few players. There's a lot of players you wouldn't want to see get injured, but he's one of the ones that you like. If he gets a knock, that is pretty devastating, because he's been playing very well for Manchester United of late, especially in the Europa League as well. He's been playing well in the Premier League and the Europa League. He really seems to have found his form at Manchester United. So for him to get an injury was just shows where Ruben Amorim's luck is at the minute. And some might have looked at it and looked at the team he picked and one or two players that should he have rested him. Did we really need to play Leny Yoro yesterday? Again, you can argue, and hindsight's a wonderful thing, but you can't have it both ways. You can't say the league form's terrible. We need to improve on that, but also we should rest our best players. It's a difficult situation for the manager. The sad thing is, he played a relatively strong team, and we still lost, and we got an injury to one of the players you didn't want to get injured. So it was just it couldn't have gone much worse for Ruben Amorim yesterday, and I just hope things do improve sooner rather than later. We've obviously got a Premier League game this week against Chelsea at Stamford Bridge. I think that's on the Friday. Then we've got the game against Spurs in the Europa League next week. Then you've got a final game against Aston Villa here at Old Trafford. If we lose that game to Spurs, it is going to be pretty toxic here at Old Trafford. I'm telling you, it's not going to be a nice feeling at all. And I do wonder what Ineos's feelings are going to be about that. Just a couple of other stories doing the rounds as well. There's the usual Viktor Gyokeres story. I think he's posted something on his social media ahead of the game saying, let's go. And people were saying, oh, what does that mean? Like, oh, does this mean he's going to go? Does this mean he's going to leave? What's happening here, there, and elsewhere? Listen, the Manchester Evening News did a story on it. We don't know what Viktor Gyokeres' future is. Do I think he's going to come to Manchester United? Probably not. The feelings or the sort of the rumours that we're hearing are that his future is going to lie elsewhere, that maybe Manchester United can't afford to bring in Matheus Cunha and bring in Viktor Gyokeres, who've both got a similar sort of buyout clause of around 60-odd million quid. I think the Cunha deal is going to happen. We'll have to see what happens with the Gyokeres one as well. Also, Victor Osimhen, he was speaking, I think he was speaking to the media over in Turkey. Obviously, he's doing well for Galatasaray. There's a couple of stories around that. Just where does his future lie? Is he going to end up at Old Trafford? I don't think so. I think that's been pretty much dismissed as an option for Manchester United. We're not going to get Victor Osimhen. Viktor Gyokeres looking less likely. Liam Delap is a striker we keep hearing about. Maybe he's going to be an option for Manchester United. I think he's got a £30 million buyout clause, so it looks a little bit more likely. But we need reinforcements. We need more attackers. I think we actually need 2 strikers personally. Do I think that will happen though? No, but I think that's what we need. Anyway, get involved in the chat in the comments. Let us know what you think. Let us know what you think about yesterday's performance. You've got the reaction there from Andy Tate. You've got the reaction after the game as well, the live review. Go and check out all that good stuff. We're going to be back later on today. We've got the Paddock podcast coming up, so make sure you are subscribing to the channel. I've been Jay Motti. This has been the Paper Talk. Thanks for watching.